The Galactic Council's gleaming ships appeared in Earth's orbit without warning. Their silver hulls caught the sunlight, casting long shadows across major cities below. Thousands of people took to the streets, pointing upward at the 7 massive vessels that hung in the sky like polished mirrors. Ambassador Tay from the Council sent his message directly to all Earth broadcasting systems at once. He appeared as a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like distant stars. "People of Earth," he announced in perfect English, "we come in peace as representatives of the Galactic Council, a brotherhood of 37,000 civilizations. We wish to welcome you into our union." Panic spread through governments worldwide. Emergency meetings were called as military forces went on high alert. After 6 hours of heated debate, Director Park, head of Earth's Defense Coalition, was chosen to respond. A quiet man with steady hands and a reputation for making the right calls under pressure, he was Earth's best hope for handling first contact. "We need a small team," Director Park told the UN Security Council. "Too many people will send the wrong message." He selected 5 experts, a linguist, a physicist, 2 military strategists, and Earth's leading xenobiologist. The meeting site was arranged at a remote airfield in neutral territory. As the Council's shuttle descended through the clouds, Director Park watched with narrowed eyes. He had been part of Earth's secret space defense program for 20 years. He knew things most people didn't. The alien craft touched down with barely a sound, much more advanced than anything humans had built. A doorway opened, unfolding like a blooming flower. Out stepped 12 different beings from various worlds, each more strange than the last. Some floated above the ground, others moved on multiple legs, and one appeared to be made of shifting crystal. Ambassador Tay led the procession. Up close, his skin wasn't simply blue, but covered in patterns that seemed to move and change like flowing water. He wore ceremonial robes embedded with tiny lights that pulsed in rhythm with his 4-chambered heart. "Director Park," Tay said, extending his upper right hand. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I bring greetings of peace and an invitation to join the greatest alliance in the known universe." The gathered human officials broke into polite applause. News cameras broadcasted the historic moment to billions watching around the world. But Director Park didn't smile. He didn't shake the offered hand. Instead, he stepped forward and spoke a single word: "Flee." The translator devices worn by the alien delegates flickered. Ambassador Tay tilted his head, confusion crossing his features. "I don't understand." "Perhaps your translation system is malfunctioning. Your translator works perfectly," Director Park replied, his voice calm but firm. "I said flee. Return to your ships and leave Earth's solar system immediately." The Council representatives exchanged troubled glances. A tall, bird-like being whispered something to Ambassador Tay, who nodded slowly. "Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding," Tay said. "We come offering advanced technology, medical knowledge that could end all human disease, clean energy solutions, and passage to the stars. The Galactic Council has been observing Earth for centuries. We believe your people are ready to join us." The alien delegation spread out slightly, and a smaller being stepped forward carrying an ornate box. Inside was a glowing orb, a symbolic key to the Council's knowledge banks. "This gift represents just a fraction of what we offer," Tay continued. "With it, your scientists can access basic Council technologies that will advance your civilization by at least 200 years. The humans in Director Park's team shifted uncomfortably. One whispered, "Sir, shouldn't we at least hear them out?" But Director Park's expression remained grave. He squared his shoulders and looked Ambassador Tay directly in his glowing eyes. "You misunderstand our warning," he said. "We don't fear you. We're not rejecting your offer out of distrust or primitive suspicion. We're trying to save your lives." Ambassador Tay's skin patterns swirled faster. "Save us? From what?" "From what follows human contact," Director Park replied. "There's a reason we've kept ourselves hidden as much as possible. There's a reason we've been monitoring your Council's movements for decades without making ourselves known." This revelation caused a stir among the alien delegates. A ridge-backed being with 6 eyes stepped forward. "Impossible. Your species has no technology capable of—" Director Park pulled out a small device and projected a hologram, detailed maps of Council worlds, transcripts of their meetings, technological specifications of their ships. "We've had faster-than-light observation capabilities for longer than you think," he said. "We stayed quiet because we know what happens when others come into contact with us." Ambassador Tay's earlier confidence faltered. "What exactly are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything," Director Park said, his voice dropping lower. "I'm telling you directly, flee. Return to your worlds. Warn the Council to quarantine this entire sector of space. Break all records of finding Earth." He looked up at the sky, which had begun to darken, though it was only midday. "It's probably already too late," he added, "but you should try anyway." A cold wind suddenly swept across the airfield, carrying an unnatural chill. The alien delegates felt it too, several of them looking around nervously. "What is happening?" Ambassador Tay demanded. Director Park checked his watch and sighed. "They're coming. They always do." "Who?" The ambassador's voice had lost its diplomatic smoothness. "We don't know their real name," Director Park answered. "We simply call them the Followers, and they've been hunting us across the stars for longer than human civilization has existed." As if on cue, the shadows around the airfield began to deepen and stretch in impossible directions. All communications devices suddenly emitted static. In the distance, the Council's ships in orbit flickered as something massive passed between them and the sun. "You should have listened," Director Park said quietly, motioning for his team to move toward a waiting underground bunker. "When we," said Flea, "we meant it." 500 feet beneath the Earth's surface, the emergency bunker hummed with activity. Engineers monitored wall-sized screens showing the strange atmospheric disturbances that had begun the moment the Council ships arrived. Military personnel moved with quiet efficiency, preparing defense systems that had never been tested in actual combat. Ambassador Tay and 6 other Council representatives had agreed to follow Director Park underground, though they still wore expressions of disbelief mixed with growing concern. The bird-like being kept glancing nervously at the ceiling, as if expecting it to collapse. "This way," Director Park said, leading them through a series of reinforced doors. Each sealed automatically behind the group with heavy mechanical thuds. They entered a large circular room, dominated by a holographic projection table. Commander Doe stood waiting for them, her uniform crisp despite the tension filling the air. Her calm demeanor contrasted with the urgency around them. "Welcome to Earth's last line of defense," she said simply, gesturing for everyone to take seats around the table. Ambassador Tay remained standing. "This is unnecessary. Our ships report no threats in the system. Your behavior borders on hostile." Commander Doe pressed a button on her wrist device and the lights dimmed. "Let me tell you a story you won't find in any Council record." The holographic table came to life, showing a 3-dimensional image of Earth. "Our planet is not our original home." The Council members exchanged glances, the crystalline being made a sound like chimes in the wind, their version of surprised. Laughter. "That's absurd," Ambassador Tay said. "Our biological scans confirm your species evolved on this planet." "Yes and no," Commander Doe replied. She tapped another button, and the hologram changed to show a distant star system. "This was our first home, nearly 50,000 years ago. We called it something different then, as we were different. More advanced than you might imagine." The hologram zoomed in on a blue-green planet. "We had just discovered faster-than-light travel when they found us." The image suddenly darkened, shadows stretching across the planet's surface in impossible ways. "We never saw them clearly. They exist partly in dimensions we can't perceive, but we felt their hunger." Ambassador Tay crossed his upper arms. "If such a threat existed, our advanced scanners would have detected it. The Council has mapped this galaxy for millennia." Commander Doe didn't argue. She simply opened a series of new holographic displays showing the remnants of 17 different civilizations, planets with shattered moons, space stations torn apart, worlds with intact cities but no living beings. "These were all thriving cultures," she said quietly. "Each made contact with humans at some point in our long journey. Each fell within months of that contact." A smaller Council member with green skin and large eyes leaned forward. "If this is true, why haven't we found evidence? The Council documents everything." "Because your scanners aren't designed to see it," Commander Doe replied. "Just as your Eyes can't see certain wavelengths of light. Your technology is blind to their presence. She pulled up another image, a complex mathematical equation. This is how they move through space-time. Your scientists would call it impossible. The Council's chief scientist, a being with tentacle-like appendages, studied the formula with widening eyes. This violates fundamental laws of physics. Only the laws as you understand them, Commander Du said. She continued the presentation, showing how early humans had fled from system to system, leaving destroyed civilizations in their wake. We didn't understand at first. We thought they were hunting just us. It took centuries to realize they were hunting anything that touched us, like we were carriers of some cosmic disease. On the screens lining the walls, the strange atmospheric disturbances were intensifying. One of the Council ships in orbit reported unusual energy fluctuations around its hull. Ambassador Tay's skepticism was beginning to crack. If what you say is true, why settle here? Why stop running? Because we found something unique about Earth, Commander Du explained, bringing up a new hologram showing strange patterns in the planet's magnetic field. This world has natural properties that slow them down. It doesn't stop them, but it gives us time to prepare. She walked around the table, her steps measured. We've been preparing for thousands of years. Every major civilization in human history knew pieces of the truth. The pyramids, Stonehenge, the Nazca lines, all early warning systems designed to detect their approach. One of the screens on the wall suddenly went black, then another. A technician called out, "Commander, we've lost contact with monitoring stations in Asia and Europe." Commander Du nodded grimly. "It's starting just as it always does. First, communications fail, then electrical systems, then they begin feeding." "Feeding on what?" asked the bird-like. "Council member," voice trembling. "Consciousness," Commander Du replied. "They consume awareness itself. They don't care about bodies or technology. They want minds." Ambassador Tay's skin patterns had slowed to a dull pulse. "Why didn't you warn?" "The galaxy. Why keep this secret?" "We tried long ago," Commander Du said, bringing up ancient transmissions sent from human colonies. "No one believed us. Some even hunted us down, thinking we were the threat." She looked directly at Ambassador Tay. "Would you have believed? Ask without seeing it yourselves." Before he could answer, an alarm blared through the facility. On the remaining screens, one of the Council ships in orbit began to break apart, though nothing visible was attacking it. "They're here faster than we expected," Commander Du said, her calm finally breaking. She turned to Director Park. "Activate the barrier." Director Park rushed to a console and placed his palm on a scanner. "Barrier activation requires confirmation." "From a Council representative as well," he said urgently. "We need your help now." Ambassador Tay stared at the screen showing his disintegrating ship. Whatever skepticism he had left vanished as he watched crew members floating in space, their bodies intact but completely motionless, empty shells. "What do I need to do?" he asked. "Place your hand here," Commander Du said, indicating a second scanner. "Your biological signature will help calibrate the barrier to protect your people too." As Ambassador Tay complied, the facility rumbled with deep subsonic energy. The lights flickered, and for a moment, everyone felt a strange pressure. In their minds, like something vast was pressing against their thoughts, testing for weakness. "It won't hold them forever," Commander Du said as the pressure subsided. "But it gives us time to explain the rest." She looked at the frightened Council members with unexpected compassion. "Now you understand our warning. But fleeing isn't enough. Anymore. Now you need to learn how to fight." The warning barrier held barely. Thin wisps of darkness probed at the shield's edges, testing for weaknesses as Commander Du led the Council members deeper into the facility. They passed through a massive vault door marked with symbols from a dozen ancient human alphabets. "The archive," Director Park announced, his voice echoing in the cavernous chamber beyond. Professor Han waited for them inside, surrounded by display cases containing objects that seemed to defy understanding. An elderly man with steady hands and eyes that had seen too much, he nodded grimly at the Council members. "Welcome to humanity's darkest secret," he said, "and our greatest shame." The chamber housed hundreds of artifacts, each meticulously preserved and labeled. Some glowed with internal energy, while others seemed to absorb light around them. Council scientist Kai moved immediately to the nearest display, a shattered crystal sphere containing what appeared to be frozen lightning. "This technology," Kai whispered, his tentacles quivering with excitement, "it's advanced beyond anything in Council records." "Because it's not ours," Professor Han explained. "None of it is. These artifacts were recovered from 17 extinct civilizations spread across this arm of the galaxy." He pressed a button on his wrist device, and a holographic map appeared, showing star systems marked with red X's. Each made contact with human explorers. Each fell within one solar cycle of that contact. Ambassador Tay's skin patterns pulsed with agitation. "You claim to have been spacefaring for 50,000 years, yet the Council has records going back millions of years with no mention of humans." "We've become very good at hiding," Professor Han said. He walked to another case containing what looked like a metal book with moving symbols on its cover. "This data core is from the Vel civilization. They were master astronomers who had mapped 98% of the galaxy when we encountered them." He activated a projector, and alien text scrolled through the air. Their final transmissions described shadows that moved against the stars. Communications failed system by system over 17 days, until their homeworld went silent. Professor Han's voice grew quiet. "The same pattern appears in all records from all civilizations. First strange energy readings, then disrupted communications, finally complete neural collapse of the population." Kai had moved to examine other artifacts, his initial skepticism visibly fading. "These energy patterns, they're similar to what our ships reported before the attack began. The entity follows the same hunting strategy every time," Professor Han confirmed. "It's why we've survived this long. We understand its patterns." He led them to a central display case containing what appeared to be a simple stone tablet covered in primitive carvings. "Our earliest warning," he explained. "From before we left our first homeworld, the pictographs describe shadows that eat thoughts and leave empty shells." Ambassador Tay leaned closer. "If what you say is true, why would your people risk contact with other civilizations? Why not remain isolated?" "We tried isolation," Professor Han said. "For thousands of years, we stayed hidden in remote systems, erasing our trails, living on generation ships. But they always found us eventually." His expression darkened. "And then we discovered something worse. They would find any civilization we had contacted, even briefly, like we were marking them somehow." A technician rushed into the room, pale and sweating. "Professor, energy fluctuations have been detected approaching at faster-than-light speeds from all directions." Professor Han nodded as if he'd expected this. "Show me." The technician projected a three-dimensional map of the solar system. Distortions appeared at its edges, moving inward like ripples in a pond. "Multiple entry points," the technician said. "Much more coordinated than previous encounters." Kai studied the pattern with growing horror. "That's not possible. Nothing can approach from multiple vectors at FTL speed simultaneously. The energy requirements would be beyond our understanding." Professor Han finished. "Yes, that's what makes them so dangerous. They don't obey the physics we understand." Ambassador Tay watched the encroaching shadows with newfound dread. "You said your barrier would hold them back." "Temporarily," Professor Han replied. "Nothing stops them forever, but we've learned to slow them down." He turned to face the Council, members directly. "Now do you understand our warning? This isn't about humanity's survival, it's about yours." The bird-like Council member suddenly squawked in alarm, pointing at strange patterns appearing on the chamber walls, shadows that moved independently of any light source. "What's happening?" he screeched. "They're testing the barrier from multiple points," Professor Han explained calmly. "Looking for weaknesses." He turned to a console and typed rapidly. "We need to move to the command center immediately." On the screens around the room, Earth's deep space monitors detected unusual energy fluctuations approaching from the direction the Council ships had arrived. "It follows the pathways between worlds," Professor Han said softly. "Your ships left, a trace through hyperspace that led directly to Earth, and you've just made a new one leading here." As if to punctuate his words, the lights flickered throughout the facility. The shadows on the walls grew more pronounced, taking shapes that hurt the eyes to look at directly. But how do we fight something like this? Ambassador Tay asked, his earlier skepticism completely gone. With knowledge, Professor Han said, pressing his palm against a hidden panel in the wall. A section of floor slid away, revealing stairs descending deeper into the earth. And with a weapon we've spent thousands of years building. As they hurried down the stairs, the council members exchanged looks of dawning comprehension and terror. They had dismissed humanity as a primitive species, unworthy of council membership. Now they realized humans might be the only force standing between the galaxy and complete annihilation. Behind them, the shadows continued to press against the barrier, patient and hungry. They had found their marked prey once again, and this time they had brought reinforcements. The night sky above Earth shimmered with unearthly light. Stars vanished, one by one, replaced by patches of absolute darkness that seemed to swallow the very fabric of space. From observation posts around the world, people watched in terrified awe as reality itself appeared to crack and bend. In lunar orbit, Captain Sun stood on the bridge of the EDS Defiant, Earth's flagship. A battle-hardened woman with 20 years of experience fighting an enemy that most of humanity never knew existed. She watched her tactical display with practiced calm as her crew worked with focused precision around her. All ships report ready. Captain, her first officer announced. And our guests? Captain Sun asked, glancing toward the rear of the bridge where 3 council observers stood awkwardly, trying not to interfere. The council fleet is in position, though they're still requesting strategic guidance. Captain Sun nodded. The council had scrambled every available warship to Earth's defense, 37 vessels of various classes, each more advanced than humanity's best efforts. Under normal circumstances, such a fleet could conquer a dozen star systems. Against what was coming, they were woefully unprepared. Open a channel to the council flagship, she ordered. The view screen flickered to show Admiral Rock, a massive reptilian being who commanded the council's military forces. His scales gleamed under the harsh lights of his command center. Captain Sun, he rumbled. My gunners report weapons charged and targeting systems active. We await your signal to engage. Admiral, with respect, your weapons will be ineffective against what's coming, Captain Sun replied. Follow our lead and execute the defensive patterns precisely as transmitted. Any deviation could be catastrophic. The Admiral's inner eyelids blinked in irritation. Captain, the Council fleet carries the most sophisticated weaponry in the galaxy. Surely, Admiral, Captain Sun interrupted, what you're about to face exists partially outside normal spacetime. Conventional weapons can't harm it. Trust me on this or lose your entire fleet. Before Rock could respond, alarms blared across both ships. Multiple spatial ruptures detected, Captain Sun's sensor officer called out. Entity manifestation imminent, Captain Sun straightened her uniform. Battle stations, execute pattern Sigma 3. She turned back to the screen. Admiral, follow our lead, now. The view screen showed the void ahead tearing open like cloth. The ruptures weren't simply black, they were an absence, areas where reality itself ceased to function. As they watched, the tears expanded, flowing like liquid darkness across the stars. What am I seeing? Admiral Rock whispered, his earlier confidence evaporating. It manifests differently for each species, Captain Sun explained. To humans, it appears as living shadow. Your crew may see something entirely different. On the Council ships, panic spread, as each alien saw their own nightmares made real. To the crystalline beings, the entity appeared as cracks spreading through perfect structures. To gaseous species, it looked like winds that would scatter their essence across the void. To the reptilians, like Admiral Rock, it manifested as a cold that promised eternal stillness. The entity surged forward, tendrils of not-quite matter reaching toward the assembled fleet. Several Council ships immediately opened fire, unleashing devastating energy beams and exotic particle weapons. The attacks passed harmlessly through the phenomenon, like light through fog. They're not listening, Captain Sun's first officer said urgently. They will soon. All Earth vessels execute evasive pattern Alpha 6. As one, the human ships broke formation, following seemingly random paths that made no tactical sense. They accelerated, decelerated, and changed direction with no apparent pattern. To observers, it looked like madness or panic. A council cruiser vanished in a flash of light, crushed by forces that bent its hull like paper. Two more followed in quick succession, their crew's screams cutting off abruptly across all communication channels. "Admiral Rock," Captain Sun shouted into the comm, "execute our evasive patterns now." Finally understanding the threat, the Council fleet scrambled to mimic the human vessel's movements. The entity's tendril seemed momentarily confused, stretching toward ships only to find empty space as the vessels zagged in unexpected directions. Captain Sun's tactical officer looked up from his station. "Captain, the entity is adapting to our evasion pattern, effectiveness dropping by 17%. Switch to Beta 2 on my mark," she ordered. "Randomize the variables within operational parameters." She opened a channel to all human ships. "Prepare Phase 2 defensive measures. On each human vessel, crew members activated strange devices installed throughout their ships, not weapons in any conventional sense, but tools designed over millennia to temporarily confuse the entity. Quantum field disruptors, consciousness pattern amplifiers, dimensional anchors that made reality locally stubborn. The entity recoiled briefly, its advanced slowing. It probed the fleet's new formation, testing for weaknesses. Admiral Rock's face appeared on the view screen again, his scales pale with stress. "We've lost 5 ships already. What are these things? How do we fight them?" "We don't," Captain Sun said grimly. "We survive them. Form your remaining ships into a retreating formation behind us. We're falling back to Earth's orbital defense grid." "Retreating?" Rock snarled. "The Council fleet has never—" "We're not the predators here, Admiral," Captain Sun interrupted, her voice level but intense. "We're the prey, the only prey that ever learned to survive. That's why it follows us across the stars. We're the only meal that ever escaped." Understanding dawned in the alien admiral's eyes. "The warnings your people sent all this time?" Captain Sun nodded. "Now you understand. Follow our retreat pattern exactly. We've spent thousands of years perfecting the art of strategic withdrawal. The human fleet began a coordinated retreat, not simply fleeing but moving in complex patterns that continued to confuse the entity's pursuit. The Council ships fell in behind them, mimicking their movements. "Captain," her first officer said quietly, "even with the defense grid, we can't hold it off forever." "We don't need forever," Captain Sun replied, watching as Earth grew larger in their viewports. "Just long enough for Director Park to activate the trap." Below them, beneath the surface of the seemingly primitive planet, the weapon that humanity had been building since before recorded history waited for its moment. The entity followed the retreating ships, unaware that for the first time in its ancient existence, it was being led into a carefully prepared ambush. Captain Sun allowed herself a grim smile. "All ships, prepare for Operation Endgame. The real battle is about to begin." 3 miles beneath the Himalayas, Engineer Yoon worked with calm precision despite the chaos unfolding above. Around her, a team of technicians monitored the world's most advanced system, a network of quantum stabilizers that reached deep into Earth's core. They had prepared for this moment across generations. "Power levels at 87%, called out a young technician, sweat beading on his forehead. "Core temperature rising but still within tolerance." Yoon nodded, her fingers flying across. Holographic controls. On massive screens surrounding the circular chamber, they watched Earth's defensive fleet retreat in careful formation, drawing the entity closer to the planet. It looked like a defeat. It was anything but. "The Council ships are following the patterns," someone announced. "They're actually doing it. Survivors learn quickly," Yoon replied without looking up. Her focus remained on calibrating the dimensional anchor, a device that had taken thousands of years to build, incorporating technologies from dozens of fallen civilizations and humanity's own desperate innovations. A voice crackled through the command speakers. "Underground Command, this is Captain Sun. We've lost 11 Earth vessels and 22 Council ships. The entity is adapting to our evasive patterns faster than anticipated. We need the trap now." Director Park stepped forward, his face grim. "Not yet. It's not fully in position." "We won't have a fleet left if we wait for perfect positioning," Captain Sun shot back, the sound of alarms blaring in the background of her transmission. Yoon looked up from her console. She's right. We're at 87% power. It's enough. Director Park hesitated, then nodded. Captain Sun, bring them home. Final approach pattern. On the screens, they watched as the remaining ships executed a complex series of maneuvers, drawing the entity into a specific position above Earth's northern hemisphere. The shadow-like mass pulsed and writhed, tendrils reaching out to grasp. Fleeing vessels. 2 more Council ships vanished in silent flashes of light. They're sacrificing themselves to maintain the pattern, Yoon whispered. The director's face remained impassive. All ships that joined us knew the risks. In orbit, Captain Sun's vessel shuddered as a tendril of darkness brushed against its hull. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Hull integrity at 60%, shouted her first officer. Hold formation, Captain Sun ordered, gripping her command chair as the ship pitched violently. Just a few more seconds. Admiral Rock's face appeared on her view screen, his ship clearly suffering damage as well. Captain, we cannot maintain this position much longer. Just hold, she urged. Trust us. Deep underground, Engineer Yoon placed her palm on a final scanner. All systems aligned. Dimensional anchor at full readiness. She looked to Director Park. Sir, the director took a deep breath. For 50,000 years, humanity had run and hidden and studied their enemy. Now they would make their stand. Activate the trap. Yoon pressed her hand against the central control panel. Trap activated. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, across Earth's surface, thousands of hidden installations activated simultaneously. Ancient structures long thought to be merely religious or ceremonial, from Stonehenge to the pyramids, from underwater ruins to mountain temples, revealed their true purpose. Each site housed a component of the planet-wide defense system, calibrated to create a specific effect in space-time. In orbit, Captain Sun watched in awe as golden light erupted from the planet below, forming a perfect geodesic pattern that enveloped both the fleet and the entity. The darkness seemed to recoil, its tendrils pulling back as if burned. All ships, full reverse thrust, she commanded. Get clear of the containment zone. The surviving vessels strained their engines to maximum, racing away from the writhing shadow caught in the golden web. Several didn't make it, trapped along, with the entity as the light intensified. In the underground command center, Yoon's hands danced across the controls, adjusting power flows as readouts spiked into red zones. Containment field stable at 73%, she reported. Entity is resisting, but the field is holding. Director Park watched the screens intently. Begin Phase 2. Yoon nodded and activated the second stage of the trap. The golden light contracted, squeezing the entity into a smaller and smaller space. On the readouts, energy levels climbed to dangerous heights. We're approaching critical overload, a technician warned. Hold it together, Yoon urged. Just a few more seconds. Above the planet, the light collapsed inward with blinding intensity. For an instant, a small sun seemed to hover in Earth's orbit. Then it vanished with a soundless flash, leaving only stars and the scattered remains of destroyed ships. In the sudden silence, Director Park asked, "Status?" Yoon studied her readings. Containment successful. The entity has been locked in a pocket dimension outside normal spacetime. She looked up, exhaustion etched on her face. The trap worked. 2 weeks later, Ambassador Tay stood before a joint session of Earth's leaders and surviving council representatives. The Grand Chamber, hastily assembled in a neutral location, buzzed with tension and possibility. The Galactic Council has existed for 12 million years, Tay began, his skin, patterns flowing with solemn dignity. In all that time, we believed ourselves to be the pinnacle of civilization, the wisest and most advanced beings in the known universe. He paused, looking around the room. We were wrong. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Humanity's warning was not born of fear or primitiveness, as we first assumed, but of wisdom and terrible experience. Tay turned to face Director Park and Captain Sun, who sat side by side in simple uniforms. You tried to save us from a threat we couldn't comprehend, and when we failed to heed your warning, you saved us anyway, at great cost to yourselves. The ambassador bowed deeply, a gesture never before offered by a council member to a non-council species. Today I formally recognize Earth not as a potential member of the Galactic Council, but as its most essential teacher. In the months that followed, a new alliance formed. Young Council officers arrived on Earth to train under veteran human commanders, learning strategies developed across thousands of years of survival. The warning flee became not just a caution, but a tactical doctrine, knowing when to retreat and when to make a stand. Engineer Yoon found herself leading teams of alien scientists, sharing humanity's hard-won knowledge about the entity's nature. The pocket dimension won't hold forever, she explained to a group of wide-eyed council researchers as they studied the trap's mechanics. Nothing ever does, but it buys us time to prepare for its return. How long? Asked a nervous, four-armed scientist. If we're lucky, a century, Yoon replied honestly. Less if the dimensional walls weaken faster than projected. And then? Captain Sun stepped into the laboratory, now wearing the insignia of a joint Earth Council fleet. And then we do what humans have always done, she said. We adapt, we survive, and this time we won't face them alone. On Council worlds across the galaxy, new defense systems were being built based on Earth's designs. For the first time in their long history, the Council races prepared for a threat greater than any they had imagined, guided by the species they had once dismissed as primitive. Director Park stood on a balcony overlooking a joint training exercise, watching human instructors teaching Council troops movement patterns designed to confuse the entity. Do you think we can actually defeat it? Next time? Ambassador Tay asked, joining him at the railing. Perhaps not, Park admitted. Some enemies can only be survived, never truly beaten. He turned to the ambassador with a small smile. But together, our chances are better than they've ever been. In deep space, at the edge of the solar system, automated sensors monitored the dimensional pocket that held the entity. Already, tiny fractures were appearing in its walls, microscopic cracks that would, given time, allow the ancient hunter to escape once more. But when it did, it would find its prey waiting, no longer running, no longer alone. Humanity had spent 50,000 years learning how to survive the unsurvivable. Now they would teach the galaxy to do the same, and the next time the shadows came hunting, the light would be ready.